Coming up next, recently I interviewed one of the most iconic rock stars in the history of planet Earth. Love him or hate him, he's always got something to say. And when he says it, you know it's how he really feels. He doesn't mince words. It was no different when I spoke to him. It's always interesting because the man has no filter. It doesn't care about political correctness or kowtowing to anyone or anything. So it's what's on his mind. He says what he thinks. And in this interview, he actually gives some hard truths behind some long-held myths about this famous band's songs. And it does rewrite some famous stories that have been told forever, including his band's biggest hit that was a B-side that sounded nothing like their typical hard rock style or the songs they'd put out. And who really wrote it? Everyone has said that he hates this song, but he tells us his real opinion on it and how it got this hard rock band played on AM radio next to Jonn Denver. In fact, he's got a weird story about Jonn Denver as well. He goes off on censorship and how certain songs get canceled while others just skate by, including certain rap songs. It's Gene Simmons, Unfiltered. He says what he wants because he just doesn't care anymore. Gene Simmons from Kiss is coming up next. Let's go into Destroyer and that album, work with Bob Ezrin. Detroit Rock City, Beth, so many great hits off of that and so many great songs. Tell me about the process of working with Bob.
I will tell you that it was a seismic shift for us. We were just four knuckleheads off the streets of New York who taught ourselves how to play our instruments. We thought we knew enough. Somehow the songs happened. You know, you listen and you put pieces together. Oh, I like that. And kind of make up your own stuff based on something. You're inspired by something, and then you make up your own stuff. And when Ezrin came in, he didn't even, before we recorded, we picked the songs and all that. He sat us down and said, "You guys don't even know how to tune your instruments, do you?" I go, "Sure. You know, I don't know if you play an instrument, a guitar or something. You hit the A and then you hit the A." I go, no, harmonically, how to do that. And we said, "What does that mean?" So he taught us how to do that. And he would stop the recording sessions and confront Peter, who hated the process. And he said, "No, you don't understand. The verse is a verse, which is not to be confused by the bridge, the solo, or the chorus. And often they have different patterns. So whatever the pattern is, the thing, you can't just play a drum roll in the middle of somebody singing." And Peter didn't quite understand what all that meant. And he was very upset. It was a kind of learning experience that we never had. You know, there's no school of cool.
And we just can't find the sound.
But Beth, there's the stories that you guys hated the song. You didn't even show up to record it. But
no,
that's all.
None of that's true.
Separate the fact from the fiction for me. I would love to hear that.
You know, when little kids are just knuckleheads and stuff, mom and dad have their discussions. You don't bring up grown-up subjects with the kids because they can't deal with it when they're too young. And fans are like that.
Yeah.
Fans who are, got to remember the word fan comes from the word fanatic.
Right.
We love them to death, but their perceptions are warped, to say the least, because they never met us. They weren't there. They have no idea, what was going on. So the history of Beth is that Peter and I were in one limo, and Ace and Paul were in another, and we were going from Flint, Michigan, to a little place called Cadillac, Michigan, which is a few hundred miles from Detroit. And the grown-ups in Cadillac, Michigan, let's call it for what it is in these politically incorrect times, men, because women stayed at home. Men went to work at the car factories.
Yeah.
And so the kids were aimless, and there was a football team, and they never won a game. And it's a story about, how this guy, Jim Neff, came in and took him to state championship by playing Kiss songs. Okay, so in the limo, Peter starts humming.
Beth, I hear you calling.
I'm going, what is that? That's a nice melody. What is that? He goes, oh, it's a song I wrote called Beck, B-E-C-K. So how's it go? Beck, I hear you calling, and so on and so forth. I go, and I remember at the time I said to him, because we had started working with Bob Ezrin, why don't you bring up that song? By the way, what are the chords, Dad? He goes, I don't know. Oh, thought that was peculiar. So Peter brought up, he had a tape of it, he brought it up to Ezrin. But before then, I suggested in the car, why don't you change it to Beth? Because when you say Beck, that hard syllable stops the melody. Beck, I hear you. Beck, I hear. There's a k in there that it's not so. Beth, I hear is a much smoother way.
Beth, what can I do?
Yeah.
And Beth is a much more romantic, idea. Actually, the lyrics are very clever. It's about guys in a band rehearsing, and the girlfriend bugs the guy, hey, when are you coming home? And he says to her, not coming home anytime soon, because me and the boys are going to be playing all night.
Hours, and I'll be right home to you.
Almost like, what's more important, your band or me? Actually, bitch, it's the band. You're not going to change my life. They will. I mean, I'm
Right.
just giving flavor to people in the social media, which is a garbage bin. Everybody likes that. Gene said. Gene also said, hashtag go for yourself. Okay, children, now that you've all grown up, it's time for the truth. Statement of fact, I love Peter. We all do.
Yeah.
Families are complex.
Sure.
I don't know of any family that doesn't argue or get angry with each other, and sometimes don't speak with each other for sometimes decades, and then get back together. Because family is family. Peter's always family. And sadly, we saw Peter at Ace's funeral.
Yeah.
And, we reminisced, and between the sorrow and the pain, remember when, and, all that. But it's time for the truth. Peter does not write songs. He doesn't play a musical instrument. Drums are not a musical instrument by definition. They're called a percussive instrument. Really important, sometimes extremely important in a band. It was for us. But you cannot play a drum fill that can be copywritten. But you can come up with a riff that you can own, and a melody and a lyric. Those can be copywritten. But nothing you do on drums will prevent anybody else from directly copying whatever you did and applying it to another song. Okay, that's number one. Number two, as far as I know, Peter plays no other instruments that I've ever seen, not keyboards, 6-string instruments at all. Peter's got a great whiskey voice in the early days.
That our house just ain't a home.
The person who wrote Beth and Baby Driver and one or two more is a guy named Stan Penridge. Stan Penridge was with Peter in a group called Chelsea.
Mm-hmm.
They had a record out, actually. I think it was on the MCA. So Peter did not write Beth. Peter did not write Baby Driver. Stan Penridge wrote that.
Calling. Oh, Beth, what can I do? Go, baby driver.
But through politics and hint, hint, nudge, nudge, and I wasn't there when the conversation went down, Stan Penridge apparently agreed that Peter's name would go in the songwriting credit. It appears first, Peter Criss, Stan Penridge, or Peter Criss, Bob Ezrin, Stan Penridge, or the other way around, but Peter's first. Peter had nothing to do with that song. Nothing. He sang it.
And you're always there alone.
And to fix all the mythology and the gossip and the outright lies, It was Bob Ezrin who said, I want to do this like yesterday.
I believe in yesterday.
More like a string quartet and piano, so more acoustically, because the melody in the song demanded it. And we'd never done that. We never thought we'd be doing a song like that, but we all went, sure. And so Ace, and again, we love him to pieces, and his memory will always be with us, and so on. This was also the time when Ace stopped coming to the studio while we were recording.
Yeah.
And this is not mudslinging. This is just, you're all grown up. We all love the band, but it's time to know the truth. Ace was going through the beginning stages of self-destructive behavior, either what he ingested or not. But at one point, I remember calling him and saying, hey, we're recording. It's time for you to do solos and stuff. I can't come down. I've got a card game, and I'm not doing Ace's voice or making fun or anything. That was a quote. So we replaced Ace with Dick Wagner, who appeared on Alice Cooper records and Aerosmith. Some of those early Aerosmith songs you think are Joe or something. It's not. It's Dick Wagner.
Mm.
You know, every band's got their thing. And by the way, I don't really care. At the end of the day, you either like a song or you don't, no matter how you get there. So there are no rules. No, there are no rules. So the mythology of Beth is exactly that, mythology. The real story is Peter was lucky enough to be in the same place at the same time as a guy who wrote a song called Beth. And then Bob Ezrin, when you heard the song, went home before it was recorded. And then Bob added the middle section of the piano, which was taken legally because it's public domain. I believe it was a Mozart piano concerto.
Yeah.
And that is the story behind Beth.
Well, it was the B-side to Detroit Rock City, and then DJs turned it around and it became your biggest chart hit. Not your biggest hit streaming wise, but your biggest chart hit. Tell me about that one.
Paul and I started doing demos individually and helping each other in a small studio called Magna Graphics, a 4-track down in Greenwich Village. Cheap, $40 an hour demo studio. And he came in with Detroit Rock City, pretty much the melody and the chords, but the original song went, da-da. So they didn't have a bass line or anything. It was just, I feel uptight on a Saturday night. I can't play that bell. So I went through what I got to do. So everything was like crunched together and there's no space. It was Ezrin who said, no. Ezrin said, I feel uptight on a Saturday night. Space, 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 space. I get up to, well, what's going to go into space? I'll show you later.
Mm-hmm.
And we recorded it. And then Ezrin turned to me and said, here's the bass part. Ba-dum. Da-da-da-da-da, ba-da, da-da-da-da-da. That was Ezrin's bass part. I had my own, but he said, try this. Now, originally there was no solo in Detroit Rock City. Ezrin came in, and we never knew what was going to happen. And he came in complete. He would do his homework. He was a force of nature in those early days. Nobody could touch him. Most producers just say, I like this, try that, or they're engineers, overrated engineers. Bob Ezrin was a classic producer. And he sang every single note of that solo. Ba-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da. He sang every single melody and sang the harmony parts, which are not parallel thirds or parallel fifths. They go off on it, on their own, and sometimes in harmony, sometimes, and then end in unison. That was Ezrin. He arranged it. He did the sound effects in the beginning. Okay, I want to hear a guy starting the car.
Yeah.
Theatrically, like a movie. And, we were kind of awed. There's another myth that the beginning voice at the top of Detroit Rock City, I think it's the DJ, is supposed to be me. It is not.
What did you think when the B-side, when it turned over and there's a B-side? Because I've read in Kiss history that there was a lot of a lot of enthusiasm behind Detroit Rock City, and then
we're a rock band, so you want that first song to be a rock song, but radio doesn't do that. During the daytime,
right? The
moms are staying home and the kids are off at school and dad is working, so she's not going to listen to a rock song when it's got too many guitars. No, play me Jonn Denver, Rocky Mountain High, nice.
Right.
And he was very successful. By the way, he used to bang our secretary. He used to come in for lunch and grab our secretary and take her for a spin.
Rocky Mountain High.
And people don't know it because they think the world was always like this. No, it wasn't. A single used to be a small record of vinyl, and you had an A-side, which the record company told the radio stations is the song you should be playing. And sometimes, not often, sometimes radio ignored it because on the other side was another song called the B-side. This is not the song you should play. In other words, they thought, well, they'll never play this one.
Right.
Well, radio turned it over and played it. And immediately it got traction. And initially, people didn't know it was Kiss.
Yeah.
They thought it was Rod Stewart.
Well, it gave you guys a look from a different perspective.
And life is stranger than fiction. That year, we won the American Music Awards. Not that we ever coveted any kind of awards. We were just thrilled that we could play anywhere and it would sell out. Sometimes multiple shows, and where the record sales were nowhere near what the concert tickets were. And it was kind of like, you got to see this band, you got to go. We were a live band. So we get up to receive our awards and we tie first place with Disco Duck by Rick Dees. Yeah. We were both number one song that year. And if you've never heard Disco Duck, I highly recommend you go to YouTube or SmoothTube, whatever buttons you press to get tortured by technology, and you'll hear it, Disco Duck. You'll hear it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number one song that year with Beth.
I love it. Well, Christine 16 is one I talked to Ace about. You've mentioned that it came from a moment of brotherly kibitzing with Paul, where you essentially challenge yourself to write a song, kind of like the songs that came out in the 50s. You're 16, you're beautiful.
You're 16, you're beautiful, and you're mine.
The title, Christine 16, came from Paul. Paul and I would sometimes make fun of each other's songwriting. So I'd never write a song called Making Love.
Right.
That's, for me, the love in the title is just lazy man's way with a lyric. But he liked that. I was made for loving you. And I don't write like that love thing. don't remember how it came up, but he just ran by. Yeah, like, Christine 16. What? What did you say? Christine 16. So I beat him to it. I went off and wrote Christine 16.
16, but when I saw you coming out of school that day.
You can't do that today, but in those days you had Sweet Little 16. That's Chuck Berry.
All the cats wanna dance with sweet little 16.
And Ringo even covered You're Beautiful,
Yeah.
You're Mine, that's Sweet 16.
You're beautiful and you're mine.
16 Candles. There were hundreds of songs about being 16.
16 candles.
Well, there's this Christmas song that goes, da, 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 da. It's cold outside, stay a little bit. So I don't remember.
Baby, it's cold outside, sure.
Baby, it's cold outside. Yeah, that was canceled because he's supposed to be forcing her, verbally with stuff. Meantime, read any rap lyric and you'll be shocked.
I really can't
Get over that old doubt, baby.
but it's cold.
The story is that we were coming back from Japan where we broke the Beatles attendance record, as a matter of fact, and played there, and it was a big time. So it was a very productive time for me because late at night while TV was running at low level, I'd be strumming on my bass or just humming and writing stuff down. So I wrote 3 songs right away. Tunnel of Love, Got Love for Sale, and Christine 16. So I was going to go, and in those days, if I couldn't find anybody to come over and do it, I'd play the drums and the guitar and the bass and the keyboards and everything. So a little while before that, I found a band called Van Halen, signed them to Man of a Thousand Faces, my production company, and produced the first 15 songs at Electric Lady Studios. And I was going to spend more time with them, try to get them a deal and everything. But while we were in Japan, they got a deal with Warner Brothers. Yay! So when I came back, I called Eddie, I'm pretty sure, not Alex. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I called Eddie and said, hey, it's 11 o'clock or whatever. You want to come down to Village Recorders and help me with these 3 songs? I said, sure. So it was the Van Halen brothers and me on bass. It was a trio.
Yeah. And
we cut those tracks, and Eddie played the solos, and just kind of said, yeah, I like that. I like this. I like that.
I've got to have you.
Eddie's solo in Christine 16 was one take, and I liked the solo a lot. So when we recorded it, I forced Ace to do Eddie's solo note for note.
Yeah.
He didn't like that, but it's a good solo.
It is.